Welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's Lights Out.
And away we go.
Yes, we always get that right.
Yeah. You get the start right. We never get... you guys won't notice this, but whenever we do the exit, the outro, we get it wrong like 3-4 times in a row. We can't get it right, but we always get the intro right.
We do get the intro.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just natural. It's the start of it.
Yeah.
We've got lots of energy.
We just never want to end them.
Just never want to end them.
Yeah.
Oh, but we have to at some point.
We have to at some point.
Cool. So this is episode 2 of our F1 for Dummies.
Or F101, because I called it 2 different things. We're sticking
You are
with
a
it,
dummy.
mate. I'm going to stick it. Yeah.
Yeah,
The F1's for me, the dummy.
No, the F1. No, you're teaching the F101. I'm the F1, the dummy.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. I did it on purpose.
Yes.
did it
See,
on
you're
purpose.
you're one step
I'm
ahead.
one
mate.
step ahead.
Love
one
that.
step ahead.
So we obviously talking about the basics. We did last episode. We did just a general overview of Formula One, a very small overview of how the races go, and race weekend and teams and all those sorts of things. So this week we're doing tires and
Strategy.
cool.
Tires and strategy. So the reason why we wanted to do this is you sort of had a bit of a background into F1,
Yep.
but then you're like, we thought that these are the sort of things that make the actual race interesting.
Yes, of course.
Because we can actually have this question a bit, but we've had a few questions about, okay, if you told us all of this, like, why is the racing actually interesting? Then why don't they just finish where they started in qualifying and stuff? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so we can get into it.
Cool.
So,
Should we start with tires?
let's start with tires first, because that influences strategy, which
Yes.
you will see.
Yes.
So, I don't know, Adam, do you want to explain how a tire actually works?
yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Tires are very, very, very important.
Very important.
Very important.
Yeah.
On your road car, what kind of tires do you go for normally?
I have some new ones. They're like low profile Continentals, I want to say.
See, I like the Continentals as well,
Yeah.
and I feel like you should always. My advice for anyone who's getting tires is
Yeah.
go mid-range.
So you don't think like Pirellis?
No,
Okay. But
because
you also don't think
Yeah.
like, I don't actually know any other brands.
there's Michelin's, Pirellis, Continentals, Bridgestones. I would always go like a Bridgestone or a Continental.
Okay. Yeah.
So the reason why is because mid-range means you're getting a certain level of quality, but with a fair price.
Yeah.
For a fair price. If
Yeah.
you go Pirelli, don't get me wrong, they're phenomenal tires.
Yeah.
But are you really getting the most out of them? Not
No,
in your
you
normal
just,
car.
like, you're just gonna be driving 70 on the motorway, like
Yeah.
in a straight line.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, safety-wise, you're loving life.
Yeah.
Safety-wise. But yeah. So what are you normally, Continentals or something?
I think I'm Continentals.
Yeah. I think mine are Continentals as well. I like those.
Hmm.
So anyway, that was just something interesting that I thought.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go into... So the team that make the tyres are Pirelli. And I know we said Pirelli are like the bougie tyres, but
They
F1 are bougie cars. So
Yeah.
Pirelli make the tyres for every single team. And they're the exact same tyres for every single team.
Every team has the same tires.
Yeah.
There's no variety. So the teams don't manufacture their own set.
No.
It's the same pair. It's the same tires, and they're given and allocated a certain amount to each team every race. Yeah,
And they
Pirelli.
have a suite of tyres and they can use them throughout the Grand Prix weekend.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, you had teams which used there were 2 different manufacturers. You had Bridgestone and Michelin tyres. And you used to have 2 different tyre manufacturers, and they partnered with certain teams. And the reason F1 didn't like that, and the reason they got rid of it in 2007 onwards, was the fact that you could build an amazing car, but then because of the tyre war, then it came down to because the tyres play such a key part to how the car actually performs on track, that you could have, I think Bridgestone was doing awfully.
Oh, really?
So
Michelin make great tires.
Yeah.
And
Bridgestone made
good.
the best with Ferrari, and the reason for the dominance was also because of that Bridgestone tire.
Did they work together very well?
They worked together really well, but they were like very short life, so they wouldn't last many laps, but you could just pit loads of times and go very quickly. But then because of rule changes, without getting too complicated, Bridgestone became rubbish, Michelin dominated, and all the teams around Bridgestone sucked.
Yeah.
So they moved everyone over to just one tire manufacturer. It started in 2011.
And that was
Pirelli.
Pirelli.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go from there. So, so like I say, tires are genuinely one of the most important things in Formula One.
Yeah.
They are the only point of the car that's actually touching the track.
Yes.
That's how important they are. They're the only thing that makes the car move forward.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. No, we get what you mean.
You get what I mean.
It's the only, like, everything connects to make the tires touch the track.
Touch the track.
And go forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there are, in Formula One, there are 5 different types of tyre.
Mm-hmm.
Which are they, please, JJ?
They are the C1,
Yes.
C2,
Yes.
C3.
What's after C3?
You'll never guess this.
Go on.
C5.
What? No, that's not.
No, I'm joking.
I was about to go, whoa!
C4 and C5.
C4. C1,
Yeah.
C2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. So you got the
Okay.
C1 to 5
Yep.
are the dry tires.
Mm-hmm.
The C1 is the softest tire.
Mm-hmm.
The C5 is the hardest tire.
Mhm.
We'll explain what that means in a little bit because that probably doesn't make too much sense right now.
Yeah.
But every time you go to a Grand Prix, the FIA pick 3 tires to go to that, 3 dry tires. And they either pick the C1, the C2, and the C3,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll pick the C2, the C3, the C4, or they'll pick the C3, the C4, the C5.
Okay.
They'll never pick the C1 and the C5 together, or the C1 and the C4 together.
Yeah.
Or the C2 and the C5 together, I guess.
Yeah.
Because as we'll explain in a bit, there's too much of a difference. So
Yes.
they always have those 3. And when you're actually at the Grand Prix, they're known as the soft, the medium, and the hard compound tire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And what the color of the soft is always red.
The color of the medium is always yellow. And the color of the hard is always white.
Absolutely. So it's easy to tell when you're
Yeah.
watching the race what type of tire is on each car.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So all you've really got to think about is the soft tire goes the quickest around 1 lap,
Yep.
but lasts the shortest amount of time.
There's lots of degradation of the tire.
Yeah,
Because
so the
it's
tire breaks down.
yes,
basically.
because it's got because it's the softest actual rubber,
Yeah.
it creates the most friction on
Yeah.
the track.
Yeah.
So even though it goes the fastest, it will wear the quickest.
Yeah, it will run out quickly.
It will run out.
Yeah. So the hard tire, the white one,
Mm-hmm.
generates the least amount of friction.
Yep.
So wears down the slowest, but then that also means that it goes the slowest around the lap.
It does. It's got the least amount of grip.
And if you can guess what the yellow one's for, the mediums is in between those 2.
A blend of.
A blend of those 2. So
Absolutely.
it's a bit faster than the white tire,
Yep.
bit slower than the red, but it lasts a bit longer than the red and a bit shorter than the white.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a very happy medium, and to be honest, I mean, they're used every race, really.
Yeah.
They're used pretty much every race.
Yeah.
You sometimes don't see hards. Sometimes
So yeah,
you'd
so at
say
every
the
race-
medium is the most used tire. I would say.
Probably.
Would you say throughout the year?
Yeah, because it's the most like average tire.
Yeah.
So, but like during a race, you have to use at least 2 of the compounds. So a compound is like the soft, a medium, or a hard.
Yeah.
So you have to use at least 2 of them. So you either have to use a soft tire and a medium tire.
Yep.
A soft tire and a hard tire.
Or a soft tire and a hard tire, or a medium and a hard.
Yeah.
So on, so on.
Yeah. So you have to
change.
use 2 of the compounds throughout the race. If you don't, you get disqualified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But
So that's
I mean,
why you
I
saw.
don't think I've ever seen that happen. So
No.
teams don't get that wrong.
No, they don't know. But that's why you saw in Baku. I don't know if you watched the race, you saw in Baku right at the end of the Grand Prix on the final lap, Esteban Ocon pitted for tires
Yes,
because
he
he's gone
had
the
to.
whole race on those tires, trying to hope something will happen, and then he had to use the other tire, so he had to pit on the final lap. So
Otherwise, he'd been disqualified.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives you a general idea of those slick tires.
yeah.
Then there's 2 more sets of tires,
There's
which are your intermediates
and
and then your fully wets.
what color are they?
The intermediates are green.
Mm-hmm.
The fully wets are blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, so you'll also know those as well when you see them.
Yeah. And when do you use them?
So you'll use your intermediate tires when it's damp it's a bit, maybe drizzly, a little bit spitting, so it's not super wet. That's when you'll use them when it's damp on the track. The fully wets are when it's very wet, when there's puddles, when it's really raining, and and the track is really, really wet. And the whole idea for these tires, they're more like your road tires, where they'll have grooves. You'll see the grooves actually in the tire. And the grooves in the tire are there to actually displace the water from the track. So that it keeps grip. If you were to keep your normal slick tires, the C1s to 5s, you would do something called aquaplane. Do you know what aquaplaning is? You can explain aquaplaning.
Yeah, so aquaplaning is, so you might feel this if you go over a big puddle in your car and your car sort of moves about a bit, not under your control. That is because what's happening is, and this is what happened, this is the reason why you have to have wet tires with F1 cars, is because if you were to use a dry tire over that, where there's no grooves, the car will go over the puddle, not be touching the tarmac, and then just slide off.
That's
randomly.
it. So if you imagine there'll be tarmac, on top of the tarmac would be a layer of water, and then on top of the water would be the tire. So there's no actual grip between the tarmac and the tire. So then the car just has no grip and just slides and
Spin off,
and spins off into a wall. So you have to have those grooves in the tire to expel the water.
And the intermediate tires can expel about 12 to 15 millimeters of water. The full wet tires are 20 to 25-ish millimeters of water that they expel.
Okay, so
that's
those
a general idea.
Those are all the tires.
Do you want to explain exactly how a tire works and how it gives its grip?
Oh gosh, there's the different compounds. You're going to have to be more in depth than me.
So what happens with that is basically when you have a tire and it's going across the track. We talked about friction earlier. So what basically happens is with the softer tires, the amount of energy required to melt the tire is less. So when you're going around the track and generating friction, the tire sort of slightly melts a bit, and it, like, I don't know if you guys know what like hot rubber feels like, but it's very sticky, so it sticks to the ground. So that's how it generates the grip. So the reason why the hards generate less grip is it takes more energy to heat the tire up, so it ends up not melting as much and not becoming sticky enough, basically. So that's how a tire works.
I get you. Absolutely. Great. And then there are obviously a few things with the tires. So the tires are actually filled with nitrogen gas.
I didn't know that.
Not your normal kind of oxygen, your normal kind of CO2 or whatever it is. That's just because the nitrogen gas is just more consistent when it comes to the differences in heat. And obviously tires get hot, very hot, and obviously the changes in heat depending on where you are on the track, where going into different corners, whether it's a long sweeping corner, whether it's a whatever it is, it needs to be able to deal, and there needs to be that security or structure in the tire doesn't change in the differences in temperature. So nitrogen gas is the best one for that.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
I like that one.
So we did say that the tires are obviously fixed, like they're built exactly the same for everyone. However, F1 teams do have a little bit of control over the tire pressure. So what tire pressure is basically how much nitrogen is in the tire. So a team would put, and any team can, so you can pick between about 19 psi to like 24-ish psi.
That's really not a lot.
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot at all. In your normal road car, you're looking between 30 to 34.
Yeah, mine's like 36.
Depending. Yours, 36. Yeah. So it's less than your normal kind of road car.
Yeah. And the reason why you would put more tire pressure in, because when you put more tire pressure in a car, it becomes more like a balloon. So the more tire pressure you have in the car or in the tire, the less of the tire that's touching the ground, because it's just becoming a bit more like a balloon. So you would put a higher pressure in the car when there's a lot of straights, because it creates less friction with the ground, which means that it's creating less resistance against the car, so you get a higher top speed.
There's less of actual rubber touching
the ground.
So so if you were to so as it's going over, as it's rolling, the less rubber touching the ground, the less friction, the less that it's less sticking. You'll go faster in the straight, won't you?
But it also the higher pressure means that the heat is transferred through the tire quicker. So even though you go quicker in a straight line, you're going to melt that tire quicker. So you'll use up the best grip of the tire quicker.
Yes.
You would go for a lower pressure when there's lots of turns, which one will be heating the tires up a lot.
Yeah.
And also if you need more grip, because then more tire is touching the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. But you have
It's very clever, isn't it?
It's very, very clever.
It's so cool.
Really, really cool.
Really cool.
So that's sort of everything about tires.
Well, one more thing. The tire sizes, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, this has changed since the new regulations have come in.
Yeah, so since 2022.
Since 2022. Before, the tire sizes were 13 inches in diameter.
Yeah. So your regular road car, the wheel rim, like, you know, the spokes bit of your car, that will have that will be like 18, 19 inches.
Yeah.
So an F1 wheel rim was 13 inches.
13 inches. So they were small.
Tiny.
They were tiny, tiny. Now, in the new regulations, they've now gone up to 18 inches. Yeah. So apparently that's meant to do with stability. They or something like that. I can't remember why.
I don't fully know why.
There's a reason why they did it.
Yeah.
We can Google it.
We'll Google it, yeah.
We'll Google it. But yes, they have changed the regulations to mean the tyres are now bigger.
Yep.
Which makes it look cooler, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. They do look cooler. Bigger rims are cooler.
Bigger rims are cooler.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, the tyres will change. The tyres have obviously changed drastically.
Yeah.
From how they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
go on then. So let's go into strategy
about
why you need to change tyres, what sort of tyres are better on what tracks. We have gone into that a small amount.
Yeah, we got into it a little bit, but the reason why we went through tyres first is because the whole strategy of a race, and it's probably the most interesting part of a Formula One race, is the strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Is because you have to make those pit stops, the tyres dictate the whole strategy, and how the car interacts with the tyres dictate the whole strategy. So not every team, because they all build a different car, you could have two teams running on the same tyre, but they're going to wear that tyre out more. And it's all to do with how much energy they're putting into the tyre, how much they're basically melting the tyre as such, how long it takes to heat up, and how consistently they can keep that consistent temperature in the tyre. Because a stone cold tyre, it's not going to be melting on the track. You're not going to get any grip, even if it's a soft. But an overheated tyre is going to be too melty.
And it's going to slide.
Yeah. It's going to slide.
So that's where you've got to find the happy medium and find the optimum tyre temperature for that track and those conditions.
Yeah. And the team that can do that best will be the fastest team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to think about their actual, because each car is different as well, which we've spoken about. So they will have to think about their strategy for their specific car on that specific track with that specific weather, with that specific temperature every single week to optimize and get the most out of that car, out of those tires that they can. That's why all the strategies will be slightly different.
Slightly different. A few laps in between here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a race strategy, as we said, you have to use two tires.
Yep.
You have a full team who basically sit down before the race. They will map out with simulations based. So the reason why they do the practice runs is to see sort of how their car is interacting with the tires at that track in that weekend's conditions. And then they use the practice sessions that they've had to basically map out how they think a perfect race will go.
Yeah.
And then they map out how an imperfect race will go, and they'll map out lots of different scenarios for what will happen, basically. And they'll look at all the data, and they'll basically be like, right, in a perfect day, we're going to be pitting on this lap at this time, and then changing onto this tyre, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And every single team will do that.
So, for example, it could be, they could say, right, we're on a track. It's got lots and lots of long straights. It's really, really warm today. So we think the best strategy would be to go out on the hards, stay for a longer stint, and then come in nearer the end of the race, go for the softs, and then go as quick as we can all the way to the end.
Yeah.
That's just an example of something they might be thinking about for their strategy for that weekend. But things do change.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Things always change.
Other
things always get involved. But I could be on the other team and be like, oh, we want to go on the soft tires first,
Mm-hmm.
have a quick start, then go on to the harder tires at the end,
Yeah.
and just run to the end.
Yes.
So the interest
That's a very basic way of putting saying what teams might be thinking of.
well, this is sort of like the basic interesting bit of F1 is like you could have two cars where one starts on the soft tires and is going to go to the hard tires after their one pit stop they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that at the start of the race, they're going to be really quick, but their tires are going to melt quickly, basically. Yeah. Whereas another team can start on the hard tire, be slower, so he gets a bit of a gap behind, like there's a bit of a gap built between them because the other guy's going quicker. But then he has to pit and go onto hard tires, which is the same tire as what the other guy's on. And then when that guy pits, he goes onto the quicker tire and he'll be chasing that guy back up at the end of the race.
Absolutely.
So that's where the interesting stuff happens.
Yes.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great. It's such good stuff.
It is great stuff.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So I would also like to ask you a question with regards, because sometimes, obviously, we have said before, we said before this that the soft tire is the fastest tire.
Yeah.
However, there are exemptions to this rule.
There's very few exemptions, but there are exemptions.
There are exemptions to this rule. Yeah. There's very few of them, but there are times when you'll hear pundits or you'll hear people say the car this weekend is doing fantastically well and is the fastest on this tire.
Yeah.
On race pace.
On race pace. So
do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, so race pace is the sort of race. So you have your 1 lap pace, which is qualifying pace. And that's how quickly you can go over 1 lap.
Yeah.
Then you have your race pace, which is how quickly you can go over these 78 laps or whatever. So that would be like your 1 lap pace might be like 1 minute, 10 seconds, but your race pace is 1 hour, 38 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to put a set of softs on, this could happen. This could happen for someone where they put a set of softs on and they're like, if they went for a whole race, they would be very quick at the beginning, but because the tire would break down and go away from them, once the tire sort of loses that peak grip, it is called dropping off a cliff, where the tire suddenly becomes very slidey because you've gone through the rubber and you're through to the canvas, which has no friction and no grip. So then you would be incredibly slow at the end of the race. So you can't just stick on the fastest tire. So when people say that their race strategy, they're faster on the mediums, is because they can sustain a good one single lap time for a lot of laps.
Yeah.
Which means that their overall race time goes down. Yeah. And the person who has the shortest race time wins the race because they've done the race in the quickest time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bang. Nailed it.
So that's the other interesting thing about it.
Yeah.
And you get even more outside scenarios where the red soft tire is so soft that it can't even complete 1 full lap of a race without falling off.
Mm-hmm.
So even over 1 lap, it's too slow of a tire. But that's a very rare scenario, and that's when the FIA have messed up, and they should have gone with like they might have gone with like the C1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
But they should have picked the C3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
But then you have other races. There's also another interesting thing which can happen.
Yeah.
Where you have Esteban Ocon, who just spent the whole race on 1 tire, and his pace didn't drop off at all. And that's when they've picked the C3, 4, 5, when they should have picked the C2, 3, 4 instead.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It is really cool.
This is why we love it. This sort of stuff is why we watch it every week.
Yeah. It's what makes it so interesting because, funnily enough, actually, so the Red Bull, because of how their car works, basically the front suspension, basically how it works, it can't put heat into the tire quickly. So over 1 lap, we said you have an out lap where you're driving to warm the tires up, then you do your fast lap, then you do an in lap. The car can't generate enough heat in the tire to get it at the right tire temperature that we were talking about, where it's at its fastest.
Yeah.
So that's why the Red Bull doesn't blow everyone away in the qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
But when it goes to the race, because it has more laps to get up to the right temperature, and then it can stay in that temperature window really well, then That's why it's so much quicker in a race, but in qualifying it's not. Whereas the Ferrari can get up to temperature really quickly.
Really quick.
So it's amazing in qualifying because it just has to do a very slow out lap and then it's already at perfect temperature. It can do a very quick lap.
Yeah.
And then pit, and then it's done a great lap. But then in the race, it does a great first lap, but then the tires get too hot.
Yeah.
And then they have to either slow down to cool the tires back down, or the tire just loses its grip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Strategy, more strategy you want to talk about?
Ferrari suck at it.
Ferrari suck at it. So this has been an ongoing issue for Ferrari.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it a little bit in our Ferrari episode.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to that. That their strategy over the past couple of seasons have been
Awful.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
Diabolical in every sense of the word.
The funny thing is, you think that after we've explained this all, you think that, you have all this data, like how can they not just, pit at the right time?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing that happens is they can simulate all this data, but then after maybe like the first 10 laps, they can see, actually, you know what? We're not using the tire up as much. It's still going as fast as we thought.
Yeah.
So good teams can sort of change their strategy depending on
mid-race
what happens. Like they can adapt, basically.
Yeah.
Ferrari can't.
No, they're just not doing that well at all.
Yeah, because there might be a safety car, which means that you're not going at full pace, so you're not using as much tire up, or, I don't know, they could just be a bit faster than they thought or a bit slower than they thought, but they can't seem to adapt.
Yeah.
Whereas a team like Red Bull or Mercedes, they can adapt very well.
Yeah.
So,
can you explain is it undertaking? Can you explain undertaking? So I think that's really interesting. This is very strategic as well.
Yeah.
Where in a race, like you said, some teams will adapt and will change depending on what other teams are doing.
Yeah. So this is what Rachel's question was actually. She asked, what is an undercut and what's an overcut?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is great stuff.
Yeah.
When you see one of these, they're so fun.
It's great.
It's great.
Yeah. From doing the jingle.
Rachel's question time.
But this was her question. So her question was, so in a race, you'll hear all the time, as soon as someone's pits, they'll be like, they're in the undercut or they're doing an overcut.
Yeah.
So, as we said, when a tire comes out of the blank, like when the tire's first used, it's all fresh, nice and sticky rubber.
Yep.
So that's when it's at its fastest. The first lap that you go out on, or the second lap you do.
It's the second one, isn't it?
The second lap you do. Yeah, the first one gets rid of that initial shine.
Yeah.
That's why tires look really shiny when they come out as well.
Yeah.
And then the second lap you do, that's the best.
That's the best because that's where it's taken off the shine and then it's the perfectly smooth and nice rubber.
No dirt on it, nothing of that. It's just perfectly touching the ground.
Yeah.
That's the best lap you'll ever do on that tire.
The sweet spot.
Let's say you have Max Verstappen in P1, Lewis Hamilton in P2.
Yeah.
Max is going really quick. Lewis is like about a second, 2 seconds behind, maybe even 3 seconds behind. Can't quite get close enough to Verstappen to pass him or get in DRS range. So what they might do is Mercedes might call Lewis Hamilton into the pit stop.
Yeah.
And they'll put some new tyres on because that's going to be, even if Max is on some soft tyres and they put new hard tyres on, because they're new tyres, they're going to be quicker than Max Verstappen's soft tyres.
Yeah,
because they're old. Because they're old.
Yeah.
So Max Verstappen has to do a lap of the race, while Lewis has pitted, has come out, and is going to do a lap of the race, but he's going to do it on this new, faster tyre.
Yeah.
So by the time Max comes into the pit, he can come in that next lap into the pit stop, but because Lewis has done a whole lap on the new fast tyre, whereas Max has done a whole lap on a slower tyre, what's going to happen is Lewis Hamilton might be able to, by the time they pass each other, he's past Max.
Yeah.
And he's in the lead now, and Max is going to come behind him.
Yeah. So that is called an undercut.
That is called an undercut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now explain the overcut.
So an overcut is a more niche scenario that only happens at tracks where the tyres don't lose their speed too much around the lap. The more laps you do. So it might be Max Verstappen's in the lead, Lewis Hamilton's behind. Lewis Hamilton pits, puts new tyres on, comes out, but because the tyres are not they're not degrading. Max Verstappen doesn't lose much time and is actually going faster than Lewis Hamilton goes around the track, because Lewis Hamilton is taking a long time to heat his tyres up to the right window because there's not a lot of friction happening from the track. So it's a very rare case this happens.
Yeah.
But where it happens in like Monaco and stuff, where it takes the track just doesn't have a lot of friction. So the tyres take a long time to heat up. Lewis Hamilton's actually driving slower, even though he's on new tyres. By the time he heats his tyres up, Max Verstappen can pit and come out still ahead. And then he has, even though he's going to take a little time to heat his tyres up, his tyres are now younger than Lewis Hamilton's. So when you get to the end of the race, Max Verstappen tyres might be only 20 laps old, whereas Lewis Hamilton's tyres are 30 laps old.
Yeah.
Which means that at the end of the race, Max Verstappen will be faster.
Yeah.
But that's a lot more of a niche scenario that doesn't happen very often.
You don't really want an overcut, really, do you?
No. An overcut's very rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare. You only ever see it at Monaco, or I can't think of another track. I think Monaco's like the only track you really see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But that isn't, yeah.
That was a great question from Rachel's Question Times.
It was a great question.
Love that one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Cool. Anything else of note?
Trying to think.
Is there any, were we doing just specific kind of tyre strategy today, or was there any other just strategy?
No, no, I think it's just like tyre strategy.
Just tyre strategy.
Yeah,
today.
that's the main thing.
Perfect. Yeah. I think we nailed it.
Cool.
Well, I hope that makes sense.
I do hope that makes sense.
Yeah, because it gets a little bit wordy, and
Yeah.
there's not really any other way around that.
There's lots of like buzzwords and stuff that they use.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't understand anything, like we really appreciated all the feedback that we got from the last episode.
Yep.
So please just let us know.
Let us know.
If there's more stuff about tires, we can do it in the next F1 for Dummies /
Yeah.
F101.
/ F101. I'm the dummy. He tells the F1 the 101.
So yeah, please let us know,
Yeah,
because we want to educate.
absolutely, and we love doing this. So
Yeah.
we really hope this series, people enjoy this series.
Yeah, we're really
it's
hoping
fun
you
to
guys
make
enjoy it.
as well.
Yeah, it is good fun. It is good fun. We learn lots of new stuff ourselves.
We do. I've
Yeah.
learned more. I've learned some new stuff today,
Definitely.
so that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for listening. And obviously, we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you very soon.
It's lights out.
Take care.
Peace.